Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, one latest post covering finance and property news. Well, we didn't get blown away, but it's Monday evening again and Edwin's back. Hi Edwin, how you going?
Well, they tell me there's a nuclear storm happening somewhere around Australia, and there's also the printing press for the government expenditure is also working overtime. It's not nuclear powered; it's supercharged with nitrous glycerin. I mean, it's madness times 100 at the moment. The way that we're spending money, 96 million, Mark, 96 million for a bloody website.
Yeah, which doesn't work very well according to all the people I've been talking to. It sounds as though the money has gone somewhere, but no, you wonder where, don't you? I wonder. Yeah, maybe it's in the back end somewhere, but I'm afraid that the experience of most users is actually pretty poor. And I think that's actually quite a good analogy. The ordinary users are saying, "Hey, the economy's on the blink as well." And if you want a bit of context for that, just look at this. This is the CPI. So this is the official inflation rate in Australia. Of course, it doesn't reflect the true inflation rate. Most people are paying a lot more. But look at wage price index, right? The wage price index has tracked below, consistently below. And in fact, I made a show on this, the inconvenient truth about the wages index. Good news, because of course Chalmers came out and said, "Hey, look, wages growth is fantastic. It's going really well, and everyone's making progress, etc." No. It's spin. So the Houses of Parliament, they're going around in a circle. And I made another show. Australia's Titanic moment approaches as spin overrides reality. Because to me, Edwin, this is the problem we've got. What we've actually got is politicians who are actually spending like drunken sailors, claiming one thing is true, when everybody who's actually in the economy and knows something else is true. And so the spin is getting louder. And the epicenter of the spin this week on housing was Claire O'Neill. How many times did she post the same thing about the $10 billion housing future fund, right? I'm thinking, yeah, we've heard this before. Spin. So let's be clear. We're in the situation where government debt is rising, where most households are under the gun in terms of increased cost pressures. Wages growth is still not really catching up with that. And we've also got, of course, the other little nicety that, maybe the expectation of price growth. Well, it's a fascinating article in the AFR. Did you see that? I made a show about it yesterday. So property markets slide into summer because the AFR had to concede that the clearance rates were going down a bit. And, maybe that's an indication of property in some places, at least, going sideways or down. Victoria in particular. So, yeah. You cannot believe this, can you? I mean, what is truth,
Well,
Edwin?
you've got to believe it.
What is truth?
Well, the thing is, okay, look, if we go back to the nuts and bolts of the whole thing, right? If we go back in time a little bit when common sense was logic and reason, as opposed to the common sense that they throw at us by that the politicians want to throw us, and what they want to say is common sense, or what they want to say is reality. The reality is that none of these people have got or a very, very 0.01% perhaps have got any industry specialty. Most of them are lawyers that have come out of university and gone into taken a political path in their lives. But one thing they do know, one thing that they are experts at, Martin, is paying for shit, right? One thing they do know, there's a number of things. I shouldn't say one thing. There's a number of things that they do know how to do, and they do it well. Okay, how to set up think tanks that cost taxpayers a fortune. How to set up committees that cost taxpayers a fortune. How to spend a lot of money in between the think tanks, the committees, and the focus groups, and then when it actually comes to putting a shovel to the ground, there's very little left to spend, and then you've got the unions and everybody else that takes a cut on the way in. So, and I think Tommy Granger, an old friend of mine, tries to explain the situation with with the website, and tries to put a little bit of context to it as to what happens in the background and everything. But look, I believe, as I said earlier on, you've got to go back to the origins of fortune telling the weather, right? You've got to go back to the origins. So I think we could have saved $90 million if we left the website alone. But hey, I would have given them gold Christmas beetles, right? Some sort of gold Christmas beetles in an old matchbox, because that's how my grandmother taught me how to tell the weather, and that still works, right? If I watch the bureau, the weather bureau, tell me, I want to get information as to, I want to know whether it's going to rain or not, because typically, it's around the time it's a little bit cloudy, and I want to wash the bloody car, and I want to take it in to get it washed. I check out the website and says, clear and fine, great, hooray! So I go down, spend $65 washing the bloody car. 2 hours later, it rains. But if I just listened to my grandmother and gone back to my Christmas beetle with the inside the matchbox and carried that around, I mean, it's hard to find Christmas beetles at the moment anyway. Right? So I'd be set. I'd be okay. I mean, it's just wastage. They've built in Victoria. They've built metro, whatever that ring rail network that goes around the city or something else. And 4 out of the 5 trams don't even fit on the bloody on the tracks, Martin. I mean, figure that one out. $50.6 billion they've spent over the last 6 in debt. I mean, they spent in the last 6.5 years. That is crazy. I mean, and the list goes on and on and on. And then and going back, obviously being a property show, we're not here to talk about Christmas beetles and railway tracks. It's just about the expenditure, bad expenditure of the government. And we're still waiting for the 1.2 million homes to materialise, whether it be pushing the private sector along, helping, assisting. But we've got so many. Look, bottom line is there's so much red tape, green tape, blue tape, mixed gender tape, every other tape in between before you can get a decision made to build and to get shoveled to the ground, and that dilutes the money that the government has. So therefore, they've got to go and print more, and they've got to tax us more from every which way possible, and it makes things cost a lot more. So we're playing catch up, but we're playing catch up when against Usain Bolt, that's got a 10-second lead, and we're on bloody crutches. That's my depiction of where we are in the property arena with the government making all these promises and all these announcements.
Absolutely, it's interesting. Did you see the HIA, the Housing Industry Association, report this week, which said that actually Australia needs 1.9 million new homes to make housing affordable, not 1.2, which is what the government's targeting, 1.9 million. The injection would equal 16% of the country's existing housing stock, and they think it would actually lower the national average dwelling price by 40% and keep mortgage payments under 30% of pre-tax income for a single buyer, making $106,000 a year. That's according to some interesting modelling. And they also highlighted the fact that unit construction momentum is actually up a little bit. That's what that little chart is about. But 1.9 million homes, it's just worth reflecting, Edwin, that we're not building as much as we were, of course, and population is still very, very strong, which surely there has to be more than a supply of new property response to the property issue, right? Now, we've said on several occasions, part of the issue is more demand, more migration coming in. And it's interesting that there's a little bit of twitching on the conservative side of politics as to whether they're going to actually put a stake in the ground with a lower migration target. But meanwhile, the government is actually playing the 3P Cup, trick by not counting now migrants from New Zealand in the migrant number. They're doing it differently now. They've actually released the brakes on student numbers, so we're going to see more student numbers coming in. And of course, the actual official calculation of migration is delayed because the ABS has to wait for 12 months and do various things to it. So all we've got are the incoming and outgoing movements of individuals into the country, and the ABS claiming it has nothing at all to do with the migration numbers, when of course it does. And all the indications are migration is still up there. May have come back a little, but it's now picking up again. So we have this real disconnect. And of course, I want to remind everybody, the HIA, the Housing Industry Association, is, wait for it, the mouthpiece for the building and construction industry. So of course they're going to say, build more to solve the problem, but it ain't going to solve the problem. And frankly, the ability to build that number is, well, impossible, isn't it? We don't have enough construction workers.
Well, we've got a track history of not building. Simple as that. We've got a track history at the moment of not building. Costs are too high. No developer that's worth their salt, apart from the top tier developers, will build because they know they'll do their ass. And they'll do you've got to sell a 2-bedroom apartment in Blacktown. You've got to sell a 2-bedroom apartment down in Liverpool for $1.2 million in order to make some money, Martin. That's a reality. After when you add up all the costs and an off the plan 2-bedroom apartment, as I've said before, in Woollahra, in Chris Mintz's little sacred cow there, they're going to be sold off the plan. And earmark this podcast, this video, guys, because they're going to be sold off the plan, and they're going to come in between 2.1 and 2.3 million dollars without a car space, and you're going to be dished out. They're going to dish out 58 to 62 square meters, including balcony, 2-bedroom apartments. That's what you're going to get. That's what we're walking into. But that's as I said before, that is the plan. That is what is being planned for a long time. That is what when we started speaking about all roads lead to Sydney, or basically all roads lead to the major centre of the capital cities, and it's all about the agendas that we walk into. So construction isn't going to get cheaper. Now, in regards to immigration, of course, the Conservatives aren't going to taper that down, because if they got into power, you know that's going to be ramped up, and that's going to be ramped up because with the golden ticket visas that that are going to. I reckon they're going to dish them out at $10,000 to $15,000. We've already spoken about that over 12 months ago, and the Albanese government have got no option but to somehow convince the public that that's going to be a good idea. So nobody's thinking of tapering it down, because there's no investment. There's no local investment from the small business, from the SMEs. A lot of them, have got their heads on the chop. That's out there. So other than your normal through your normal loans, I mean, it's shark loans that are out there, and they're absolutely crippled. So you've got to bring in investment into the country, and the only way, as I said before, is going to be people that have got more money to spend. That's you've got to bring in this people that are going to be spending in small business operations, because the small business operations is what keeps this country going. It has been for decades and decades and decades. So you take them off the table, and that's it. We can't do big industrial manufacturing like we did in decades gone by, because of the way that we are structured, the way we are unionized, and the competition around us from India, from Indonesia, from the new kids on the block, Vietnam, and other countries. I mean, we've got nothing on them. Our labour costs are too high. So you've got to crank up the small business operators. And folks, they are coming. They're coming. They're coming for various reasons. We're talking to the Century 21 CEOs and all the head honchos over in England and other parts of the world. And we're still very, very favourable in their eyes, not necessarily for work. Obviously, work is one thing, but also mainly and predominantly because of your primary and secondary education. That's still very reputable around the world in terms of um, being safe and stable, as opposed to what they're getting dished out over in your part of the world, mate.
Well, it's certainly a very interesting set of dynamics. I had an interesting conversation via my one-on-one session the other day with somebody in the UK who's looking at Australia. And we went through a couple of suburbs that he was looking at and said, wow, never have I got such insight from a conversation about a particular area. So I think there's a real interesting opportunity actually to use the one-to-one service with people thinking about coming into Australia, right? Trying to separate sheep from goats.
100%.
Yeah, so that's quite interesting.
100%.
To come back to the HIA just a second, did you see this report, which I thought was quite interesting? This month's decline in new home sales nationally was led by a 19.5% decrease in Victoria. No surprise there. Followed by South Australia down 11.5%, Western Australia down 5.8%, and New South Wales down 3.3%. Queensland was the only one of the large states that saw a monthly 6.7% increase in new home sales. So new home sales are not going very well. But look, this was the real killer slide. Wealthy downsizers flock to hotel-style units. So let's be clear about what is being built and what is planned to be built. This is a very interesting little storyline about the types of property that is being built. This is a joint venture between a property and investment firm and a construction company, but they're building upmarket developments. The average unit price for these start at $1.9 million for two-bedroom homes, while the sub-penthouses are priced from $4.2 million. And the penthouses will start at $8 million. And construction has begun with a project scheduled to be completed in the first quarter of 2027. So this is targeted at wealthy downsizers. And that's your problem, right? What we're seeing at the moment is a lot of the initiatives with regard to what's going on with regard to housing is actually targeting the more affluent, the top end buyers, those who actually have, millions of dollars. It is not tackling the fundamental issue that we have, that for ordinary Australians, they just can't get onto the property ladder. Or if you do get onto the property ladder, you have to absolutely mortgage yourself up to the hilt. There is something fundamentally broken. And my point is, Edwin, a lot of the initiatives that the government is spinning at the moment, for example, the tax breaks and those other things, the buy to rent plays, all of those things are giving a kick up the market scale, not helping deal with housing affordability where it needs to be. So I would argue that a lot of the recent interventions from government are creating these sorts of issues.
And this is what we said, we've been saying for a long time, and that is that the first-time buyers and a lot of the young people that are putting these leaders into power are the ones that get kicked in the teeth, and then eventually get thrown under the bus. That's the unfortunate thing. But are we going to get more of this moving forward? Of course we are, because now we've got the left and the right are the wings of the same vulture, and that are going to continue to throw the young aspiring homeowners that just want security, peace, security, tranquility, in a place to call home. That's all they want. That's all they're wanting for the young family, and somewhere where they don't have to pack up and leave and go elsewhere, further afield, make new friends, join new clubs and everything else. I mean, that disruption is going to cause so much problems, psychological problems with a lot of young kids down the track. So the only people that can afford these properties, as you said, are the wealthy downsizers, and that's what the purpose built for that. Because they are the only developments that make sense, apart from retirement villages and nursing homes. SEP 55, and you're SEP 55. You have to be 55 years of age and over to own one and occupy one in these communities. They're the ones that are they're the only ones that are making money. You got a SEP 55 up in Springwood on the highway. And the townhouses, and the small townhouses, and they start at $1.2 million. You could buy you could buy a house in Springwood for $1.2 million. You have to go further, a little bit further out from the from the shopping centre in the railway station, but you can still buy something decent. But like this is the craziness of this whole situation that we're in. And as I keep on saying, would sadly say, and that is that the system is not broken. And things only get fixed when they are broken. We still got a lot of the younger people. They're going to be walking through glass, through broken glass, through thorns, in nails and everything for the next is it 5? Is it 7 years? There's going to be a lot of pain, and the immigration intake, as I said, that is not going to taper down. That is not going to taper down, folks. And this is what a lot of people ask me, and they say, "Oh, should I buy now because of, or should I wait because of this, because of that?" I mean, you have to look at all the data points, and you have to look at the area, obviously, that they're looking at buying into, and the reasons why they're looking at buying. As you say, you've got to go very, very granular. In terms of the discussion that you had with that British family that want to migrate over to Australia and want to understand what different suburbs have to offer. I mean, that as we said, we've been talking for a couple of weeks we're putting that information out with the Century 21 officers over there in England. We're gonna be launching an awareness program. And then you'll definitely be getting a lot more queries and inquiry about that that oversight, that overview before people make a decision to come over or buy willy-nilly because they see something shiny on brochures on the internet, and the agent tells them, "Hey, it's a good thing. Here's the building report. Everything's okay." So look. We're going to get a lot more of that, but that's the unfortunate thing, Martin, is that there are a lot more people coming in both sides of government. What we can see is that there's going to be a lot more people with money, and that's going to put more competition on the ground because of what the report that you just put out before, the graphs, and that is that the sales numbers are not there. Why? Because there's not a lot of real listings that are available for people to buy. And if they've got nowhere to go, they'll withdraw the listings if they don't get the dream price that the agents have told them that they would get.
Absolutely. Well, just on the question of property, this was a really interesting article. It's not often that I actually see an article that I think, oh, actually, there's somebody done some thinking about this. But this is quite interesting. Before you buy that $1 million house, consider these vital points. And this particular writer here makes the point that the size of the transaction, because of course property is so expensive, means small mistakes lead to big losses. When you're signing up, particularly for $1 million property plus, everything's magnified. So if you buy an underperforming property or underestimate maintenance costs or partner with the wrong professionals, any of those mistakes can lead to a ballooning loss in terms of $1,000. Absolutely. The second point is that there is a significant complexity to the transaction. There are lots of parties involved, from banks and brokers. Many of those profit from you buying the most expensive property you can afford. It isn't just an asset, it's like a big business, right? And then think of the regulatory environment. Property is not technically a financial product under Australian law, and therefore is not subject to the same regulations. This makes it simpler to market, sell, and give advice about real estate, but also riskier for the everyday consumer. And then let's add urgency and status. Of course, panic, you must buy, you must buy. So it's actually quite interesting. So I'm not saying you shouldn't buy. What I'm saying is it's worth resisting the pressure and ensuring you're making the right property decision, not just the fast one. Spot on with that. And there are big gaps in your understanding. For example, what about finances? Think about your superannuation. Think about the taxes. Property is an advanced financial decision because of how complex it is. If your financial skills are low, then there's a higher chance that you're going to unknowingly make expensive mistakes. And if you're thinking of, worrying about investing $5,000 in ETF, but you're signing $500,000 mortgage, just understand that property is not safer than share market investing when you factor in the mortgage, which adds risk, the lack of diversification, another risk, the number of added parties involved, and so many other factors. And the last one is perhaps you need to have a plan of building wealth outside property. So just don't put everything into property. There are some really interesting points there, Edwin. The critical one is don't get bounced into it. You got to go into this with your eyes open. And so many people, I still find in my one-to-ones, are making decisions from emotion, as we've said before, feel as though they've got to rush because, the market is burning and we're going to miss out. And so many people make mistakes. I thought that was quite an interesting observation. It comes right back to, this is a big transaction. This is about making sure that you've got your ducks in a row and you've thought it through and you know what you're doing. Don't get bounced into it, because if you do, you will repent in leisure. And of course, later on, we're going to look at an example of repenting at leisure with regard to those renovated kitchens and bathrooms that aren't really that great.
It's crazy what goes on there. The unfortunate thing is that many believe the tribe that floats around. And but look, Martin, it seems to be one of those infomercial shows. Is look, at the end of the day, people are needing more and more agencies like the one that we're currently firing up and making bigger, so as we can assist more people around Australia. And that why? Because the industry itself is making it harder and harder for people to have proper discovery and do proper due diligence before they buy, because of the panic, because of the sheer low numbers that are truly available for purchase, the properties that people want. You could almost say that in many parts, in most of Sydney, you could buy anything with land, and you're not going to have an issue because of the demand that's created out there. But a lot of these decisions you in that article, the reporter talks about, the writer talks about the $1 million decision. For crying out loud, there's only 600 or so properties in the Sydney region that are under $1 million.
Yep.
Everything else is apartments, townhouses, or duplexes. And so what do you get for $1 million?
Yeah, not a lot, I think. And interestingly, Edwin, just on that, the other angle that's quite interesting is, of course, there's this question about holiday home and holiday home deductions. The ATO just came out. They're launching a crackdown on holiday home deductions. A new draft ruling from the ATO may significantly reduce the deductions that holiday home owners can claim against rental income from the property, limiting it to advertising, cleaning, and other costs directly relating to earning the rent. You can't claim ownership costs such as rates, insurance, depreciation, interest, land tax, not even repairs and maintenance, unless the property is mainly used for productive income generating purposes and is not held for private purposes. This really is a very important development, and I do think that many people are going to find this quite surprising. There's 1.2 to 1.5 million homes that are actually second homes or vacant homes. If you believe the official statistics, it could be higher than that. And certainly in my one-to-one conversations, Edwin, I quite often find that people have actually deliberately got holiday homes and second homes for tax mitigation purposes. And guess what? The ATO is beginning to turn the dial down on that. So that's another factor to bear in mind. And I don't know what you think, but I think this is actually quite a significant development.
It's a good development. It's a good, and the changes to the 6.6 rule. Basically, in a lot of these holiday homes and holiday destinations, the holiday homes that land on specific areas, you can only live on them live on them for 6 months, and the other 6 months have to be occupied by short-term letting. So there's all different rules, and they're trying to capture all the how people are maximising the tax returns. That's what they're trying to capture. The other thing that it'll do, which happened with the legislation changes to the Tenancy Act, and with the short-term lettings and the fixed-term lettings, and you can't muck around with that anymore. You can't give people notice, and then you can't sort of chop and change anymore. Otherwise, your property is sidelined for 6 months. For anywhere between 6 and 12 months. And a lot of people can't afford that. So that put a lot of property on the markets in areas like Glura, Central Coast, the South Coast, where some of my family live and own property down there, and they went backwards by 10-15%. So you could literally buy in a lot of places in the outskirts of the Sydney region. You could buy for the same prices that people paid for them in 2021. So they're the change, but they're small changes, and they're in fringe areas, and a lot of people aren't necessarily gravitating to a lot of these areas anyway. The other interesting thing, Martin, is that it's generally the top end properties that take longer to sell. Yep. And they drop more in value than the lower end properties in those areas. It's a good thing for the locals, but not many people that live in the West want to say, "Oh shit, look, the property home prices in Lura have gone down to 2021 level. Hey, honey, pack up the kids and pack up your shit, and let's go over to live in Lura." It's just one of those things. But yeah, look, it's not a bad, but it's small incidentals. It's sort of like, here's a piece of candy. Shut up, keep your mouth shut, and leave. Let us leave. That's the sort of stuff that you do with that. That's how they're treating the general public. The politicians are treating the general public. Now, here's some candy. Here's a bit of cheese. Just go and play, outside whilst we decide what we're going to do with the rest of the money that we've taxed you with, and maybe decide whether or not we're going to have a fast rail track from Queensland all the way to Melbourne. I don't know what shit they come up with these days to tax us more. But it's getting interesting. But look, the good thing is, Martin, is that the private sector are starting to hold the industry to task now. And there was an article that Louis Christopher put out, which I thought it was great. It was it's a move in the right direction. If the regulators aren't necessarily interested in what you and I may have been saying for the last 4 or 5 years, and I've been saying for the last 12, 13 years of articles that I've been writing about underquoting. Maybe the people of notoriety like Louis Christopher is certainly making a dent. And I reached out to Louis and I said, "Listen, mate, I'm going to be supporting you, and whatever you need, let me know. Sing out, because I have the receipts. I've got heaps of receipts." And the other thing that I would like to see being tackled is the NCBs that we've spoken about, and the non-committed buyers and the dummy bidders that are also appearing to really make this sale by auction a fiasco. And it's really created a really bad stain in the industry that I'm involved with.
Absolutely. And it is interesting, Edwin, that the discussion up till this point of the whole underquoting issue is really breaking through quite interestingly. And I don't know whether you've been following the latest developments, but in Victoria, for example, they've actually now changed the rules there. Real estate agents will have to disclose a home reserve price well before buyers attend auctions under Australia First laws aimed at tackling rampant property underquoting in Victoria. The new laws, set to be introduced into Parliament next year, so they're not in yet, will require agents to publish the owner's reserve price at least 7 days before auction day or fixed date sale. If agents fail to publish a reserve price, the property will not be legally able to be offered for sale. The tragic thing about underquoting is that it often is the young first home buyers who are the victims of underquoting, who are about to make the biggest financial decision of their lives, and we think this will go a long way to help stamp it out. This is a massive reform. It's nation leading. So that was the first point. And then, of course, New South Wales Well, more data here was published again, showing that there's a significant number of underquoting going on. Places like Alexandra, for example, Camperdown, Marrickville, and Stanmore. And they quote the Fair Trading Minister saying that stronger underquoting laws are needed to restore trust and improve transparency. Well, we'll see. But I have to tell you, Edwin, all this talk, the critical question will be, will they police it? Because if they don't police
100%.
these rules, it makes no difference.
Yeah. Look, what really needs to happen is the industry itself is the one that's going to clean out a lot of this stuff. It has the power to clean out a lot of the shit that's happening in the industry. If they gave us a platform, if they gave us individual platform to put in complaints or with evidence, with real evidence, in other words, with real facts and figures and receipts. If it was, I mean, they've trialed it. It doesn't really work. I've made official complaints to the regulators. I've made official complaints with previous property reporters from Domain and other areas, jointly. And we're still waiting for a response. 5 years down the track, we're still waiting for a response. I've reached that in many different angles, but they really don't want to know that. But if there was a platform that that they would watch, and this is something that Louis is a pioneer in this, because the data points that he's grabbing are they're receipts, right? So I mean, he's collected 4,000 potential breaches of potential and alleged breaches of underquoting, and which is huge, which is why but when you talk to the people in the industry itself, when I talk to other real estate agents, we all know what goes on. We all know how it's done. We all know how it's manipulated. We all know how as I've said before, you bring in a new regulation, you bring in a new legislation, and there's 6 ways to Sunday to circumvent it, right? That's the industry in a nutshell when it comes to this. But if you created a platform within the industry to you can put in your complaints anonymously, and they get looked at, not just I feel or I think or this. I'm talking about with receipts, the sort of stuff that I put up on X or Twitter, or and now I'm starting to put up on LinkedIn as well. I'm talking about with genuine receipts, real receipts. Then because because everybody, if you don't know what goes on, if you don't know what your co-workers in an area, in a patch, in a suburb are doing or not doing, well, you're obviously living under a rock in that area. You're obviously not getting around. And this is the incredible thing. We all know what goes on. We all know how it's done. And yet you've got these regulators, and as you said, they haven't been on the front foot in terms of the policing, which is issues that I've raised for over a decade. How they're under the fair trading are underfunded, understaffed, underfunded, and they don't have the nous to really go out. They don't have the resources. So this changes. My question is, with regards to Victoria, what it's going to do to Victoria is going to be interesting, because I've been thinking about this since I read the articles over the weekend and just before the weekend, and how it's going to impact it. What we're going to end up getting is end up getting inflated reserves, and there's a lot of property that is going to be not sold and going to go into a private treaty campaign with a readjustment. Why? Because the demand isn't there, Martin. So the demand isn't there, and a lot of agents and property owners, because of the way that the industry has educated the property owners and uh, the public there and agents, they're going to be too scared to undersell the property because they're not going to go much further than the actual reserve. You're going to have the people that are going to play the game that we are in accordance to the rules. But the industry itself is going to say, oh, going to go back to the neighbours and to that particular seller and going to say, oh, they undersold your property, they did this. I mean, that's the nature, right? As I used to say when I was involved in sales and myself, when I ran actual sales, not managed the sale process, but actually, sold properties for clients, and I came up against competitors. I mean, the interesting thing is that a lot of agents, shit in their own backyard. That's an old saying in the industry. Why? Because they put shit on each other and brag about themselves and then it's a crazy world. So I don't believe it's going to have the effect in Victoria, because Victoria, as I've said before, is going to go into a further slump in values, and we're going to end up with a lot of properties being passed in. I mean, there's a hell of a lot more going up for to auction in Victoria. There's a lot more freestanding homes for sale. Almost 2.5 times the amount of homes for sale in Sydney. So it's the wrong dynamic. Introduce that into New South Wales, hey, and we've got a ball game. Because the dynamics aren't working for it to have the impact that they believe it will have. It's, in my opinion, just going to be counterproductive, and not a lot of sales, less sales are going to happen. More investors are obviously going to be bailing out as well, and just go down the traditional route. I guess, in a way, is what we've been seeing, what we've been talking about, and that is that there's one sector of the industry that's feeling it, apart from the selling agents, because there's not really a lot of food, a lot of cake to go around because of the low sales numbers, are the auctioneers. We're going to see a retraction in numbers there in Victoria, because a lot of people are going to opt to go down the private treaty part, because that's a little bit easier to control. Then the regulators are going to be so focused on sale by auction. So if that makes sense, I'd say bring it on in New South Wales, and then we'll have a ball game.
Absolutely. And just on the whole issue of regulation and control, another article that came up this week, again, under the bidding blind moniker, but talking here about, guess what, Edwin? An example of systemic problems in the New South Wales pre-purchase home inspection regime, which is plagued by inadequate reports, real estate agent manipulations, and a lack of proper qualifications or standards for inspectors. These shortfalls can lead to buyers being stuck with defective homes that are, at worst, unlivable. And it's interesting, statistically speaking, they said since 2021, the Department of Customer Support said it's received 26 complaints relating to pre-purchase inspections. Only 26. So there's a words and figures differ issue here. But it's interesting that, again, the newspapers are now starting to report on this. Edwin, they've been way behind. They should be watching our show, right? We've been talking about this for a long time.
Well, they have been watching the show, Mark. That's the thing. They have been watching the show, and now that I'm back on LinkedIn and I've been putting our shit on LinkedIn, it's they're running with it. That's the only, because it's only now. You think about it. It is only now. I'm passionate about what you and I have been doing for many years. And talk about it and repost it and put it out, and I've been tagging the mainstream media on my LinkedIn posts now as well, because look, this is something that you and I, how long have we been talking about it? And it's only so that obviously it's a good thing.
Yeah,
we are on the right side of history, and this is now. I tell you what. I tell you when I will absolutely, as the old saying goes, I will rejoice and jump for joy and cheer and carry on. Is when I start seeing people with tattooed across their foreheads, "Do not trust the selling agent." When I see that in the open for inspections, I know we're getting through.
Absolutely. Well, talking about getting through, of course, one of the other issues that I'm very concerned about is asbestos. Jill, of course, died 4 years ago now from asbestos, mesothelioma related. And this last week, there's been more coverage, again in the press, of asbestos. It started with the asbestos found in Chinese-built wind turbines, which is down in Tasmania. And that sparked calls for a national regulatory response, which of course is an interesting reaction. And what I find interesting here is that again and again, almost wherever you look, the old asbestos story pops up again and again. The hazardous material was recently found in brake pads used in wind turbine towers. Now, it's just worth just reflecting. In a typical house, you can have 26 or 28 different areas in the house where asbestos is likely to be present. In houses, well, even into the 2020s, people are still actually putting materials into properties which include those related to asbestos. And of course, properties that were built earlier will almost certainly have asbestos in them. And despite what the industry would want to claim that this is all now being solved and nothing to see here, we've still got a lot of people dying each year from asbestos-related disease. This is an ongoing disaster area, and it's one I keep coming back to, Edwin. But now we're seeing it with regards to the turbines too. You can't make this stuff up.
You got to feel sorry for the Tasmanians and everybody else, because a lot of the people ask, well, how the hell do you find asbestos in the brake pads? Well, they were commonly used, and a lot of mechanics died historically from them, not just builders or gyprockers or bathroom renovators in has gone by. It's a lot of mechanics, a lot of the ones that specialised in brake pads, and also a lot of intersections around Sydney, that major intersections, and a lot of the commercial operators in typically major intersections, it's mainly commercial or very little retail, major shopping, major traffic areas. There's one Maryland's that there used to be a mechanic on a brake mechanic on one side of the road. They've got a cake place on the other side of the road. There's a park on the other side, Maryland's Road. I can't remember the name of the other road. I think it's Hilltop. I think it's the corner of Maryland's and Hilltop, and there's a petrol station on the other side. Well, there was a mechanic there that we used to know, decades ago, and one day he's there, the next day he's not because of that, because his specialty was brake pads. Asbestos has a very, very high temperature tolerance, which is what you need, obviously, with your brake pads because they heat up. And with these wind turbines, the massive brake pads, and you can't just have with these turbines, you can't just have the metal pads that are commonly used now, mixed with different fibers. You've got to have it's a different game. So now what do we do, Martin? Do we are the wind turbines going to be pulled down, or are they going to issue breathing apparatuses to all the Tasmanians and everybody else? All the people around Goulburn, all the people around those wind farms. And they're massive. You drive down to Canberra and you see it. This is all. And the thing is, this is all floating around the air, and it's being blown north, south, east, and west. So who knows what we're breathing? So further to those posts that I sent you there, and the one I found, the working safe, house that I saw that really found that to be very telling, and people should stop the video and just blow that up and have it, or look for the link yourself and keep it handy. And because, and you see what's out there. So then I started thinking also of other areas apart from the wind turbines. We know that you find asbestos that people are going to be shocked and surprised. So I made just a quick list. We know the children's playground, the mulch around some of the playground. How the hell you've got asbestos in mulch is a question that begs an answer. Again, children's playgrounds in the sand pits. Again, how the hell do you get asbestos, in sand pits? And you've got obviously, the gyprock that's being imported. There's a lot of new homes that are even being currently built that you will know whether or not the gyprock, has been has that 5%. Because over in China, they've got a 5% tolerance on 5 or 10% or in between. I can't remember. It's about anywhere between 5 and 10% is the tolerance for to have asbestos in the gyprock, and a lot of the gyprock being imported in container loads, through through different channels, and you're not going to be checking every single bloody container, are you? So there's a lot of homes that are being fitted out, gyprocked with that type of plaster that contains asbestos, and the other thing obviously is a lot of people forget is the textured ceilings, the popcorn ceilings that have got the vermiculite. But the other interesting thing, Martin, is a lot of people aren't aware that a lot of the jade that people are wearing around the wrists and around the necks has asbestos as well, and that is broken down with the natural acids that we excrete when we sweat. And people are breathing it in because they're hanging it off the chains or off the whatever necklaces, and they're breathing it in as they. A lot of them have these ornaments dangling through pieces of jade, carved out different shapes and forms, hanging off their neck without realizing that they're breathing in asbestos fibers. It's quite alarming how much of it is around, and we're not told.
No, absolutely. And, the old adage was the 3 waves of asbestos. The first wave was mining it out of the ground. The second wave was those actually exposed directly through industrial use, or installation. The third wave relating then to households, and particularly those involved in DIY, because over time the asbestos degrades. But that is much, much too simplistic. And I would remind everybody that unfortunately exposure to asbestos takes a long time to show, maybe 20, 30, 40 years. But if you're unlucky, a single fiber, if it lodges in the wrong place, can be responsible for, horrendous cancer later. And unfortunately, again, the officials at a state and at a federal level don't want to talk about it. I've had a lot of work going on behind the scenes trying to lobby politicians to be talking about asbestos. They don't want to talk about it, partly because they had this industry agreement with some of the big manufacturers some years ago, and they don't want to rock that boat because there's some compensation for those directly exposed via the industry route. But the trouble is that it's actually endemic. And unfortunately, we have not learnt the lessons. We are still bringing into the country, as you say, asbestos sheets, not 100% asbestos, but a small percentage, but still enough to be difficult. And also, of course, it is still, in some parts of the world, used in talcum powder and other cosmetics. So it is not clear that the real intent to take asbestos out of the system is really being seriously pursued. So if you're actually thinking of doing any DIY, or if you're actually doing anything that potentially has exposure, take precautions. I tell you what, you would not want to see what I saw in the last few months as my wife died from the mesothelioma. It was horrendous. And the point there is, And we did a lot at the time, and we're still doing it to try and actually raise awareness through Asbestos Awareness Australia. But the truth is, politicians don't want to talk about it. And I find that very disturbing.
Right, it is. It's a shame. It's a shame. I remember watching uh, when I started watching TV. I think it was around the 2019, 2020, somewhere there. But before that, 7 years ago, seven, 8 years ago, they still had the show. I don't know if they still got it. I haven't watched TV, but renovation rescue or something. Can't remember the name of it. I actually made a post on. I've got to go through my whole LinkedIn posts that I did. 8, 9, 10, 13 years ago, we was talking about even underquoting back then, and I made one about the talked specifically about these shows, because the last show that I watched with these renovation rescues, or this competition that they used to have that have 3 teams competing, and if you recall, it wasn't so much the block, it was the other competitive network that was running these other shows, and the last show I watched, and hence the reason why I wrote the article at that time, was a show where it was a red brick house. I think it was in Mount Druitt, or thereabouts, St Mary's, somewhere around there was a red brick house, and the people that were renovating the house. So you could make the assumption that being a red brick house, obviously was built in the early 70s, and the bathroom, the program, the commentary around that was the original bathroom, had the original kitchen, and all. So you could safely say that 99% of the billboard of the fibre that they used at the time, the wet areas, laundry, kitchen, and in the bathroom, you could safely say that it was asbestos contaminated, right? But when you looked at the way that they demolished the bloody thing, no PPE gear, a dust mask of one of those surgical dust masks, and that is why I'll find the article, and if I find it tonight, I'll post that up on after you post the link, Martin. And it's and I wrote about what would the repercussions be 10 years from when the show ends, or 15 years, or 20 years, or what is the statute of limitation? Because you could see lawsuits coming left, right, and centre if they haven't already been settling out of court, because of the fanfare of doing your DIY renovations without taking proper precautions. And that was the whole gist of the article that I wrote. But we digress. We go back to the listing numbers.
Well, just before we do that, let's just talk about rentals, right? So there were some interesting articles this last week as well on rentals. So first, Victoria is going to ban rental listings without fixed prices from November. They've announced a significant change in rental advertising laws, confirming that from the 25th of November, all rental listings in the state must include a fixed single price. So that probably is quite useful. The reforms sit alongside additional changes that include a full ban on rental bidding and acceptance of unsolicited offers, extended notice periods for rent increase and evictions, and prohibitions of no-fault evictions. That's good news if you're actually trying to get into the rental sector. But if you're a property investor, you're going to say, oh, wow, yet more reason to get shot of that investment property in Victoria. And then the other angle on here, this article here just showing the rental crisis hitting the regions. I've been talking about this for some time. The gap between wages and low vacancy rates has driven rental prices higher. And of course, that in turn has significant impact in the regional towns. The rental markets there have changed. It's affecting the productivity of the country. And increasingly, we see businesses that may not be able to fill vacancies because workers may want the job, but they can't find a place to live. They can't take the role. So there's 2 sides of this equation here. But the truth is the rental situation is absolutely disastrous. It's getting worse, not better. And whilst there was a report out just recently that said, oh, things are a little bit easier in terms of affordability. I'm not seeing it in my surveys. And certainly in regional towns, it's hugely, hugely problematic. And this Victorian intervention, which I welcome from the point of view of those who are actually on the market to try and find a rental property. But just think about the yin and the yang, the impact on the investors. They've already been running the exits. This is going to continue that run, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And at the moment, there's really the numbers have been historically low for a number of years now with regards to what's out there, because the investors are not in Victoria. They're not putting them back on the rental side of the equation. They're choosing to sell out,
Yep.
Sell out, or whatever it means. Hence the reason the numbers are so high there in Victoria, and it's a slow moving train. The As you said earlier on, from when we read these articles, I had the same thoughts as yourself, and that is the impact that it has from the investor side, but also the impact on those that are already renting. Basically, because there's not a lot of choice still, that they don't get the benefit of, or they don't get much of a benefit, because unless they want to relocate, and
Yep.
relocating costs a hell of a lot of money. And this is what's masking a lot of this. What's masking is that a lot of people aren't moving. They will absorb rental increases because of the sheer cost to actually move and try to find something else in the location, something better, or something of equivalent value or standard. Things just go downhill from when you decide to vacate to think that you're going to find something a lot cheaper. So that's why they're absorbing a lot of that pain. And it does benefit those that are coming into the rental arena. It's a good thing, but again, it's one of these things that are being dished out in Melbourne. Why not bring it across the board? Why are we so disjointed with a lot of these regulations where it's really more so needed? I mean, I'm not saying that Victorians don't need this, but it's needed a lot more in New South Wales, in Queensland, WA. Where the stress is even higher. So it's crazy. It's as you say, it's the yin and the yang. When you start looking, breaking it down, and it's putting more pressure. So what they want to solve, it's actually making it worse on the other side. That's because of the combination of everything else around it: the taxes, the land taxes, the duties, the this, the that, and the cost to hold. It's just becoming horrendous.
Absolutely. Well, it is not simple, but joined up thinking is required. Let's look at the numbers briefly. In Sydney, on the 17th, there were 24,392 properties listed for sale in the Sydney region as defined by domain. And on the 24th, 23,706, so a bit of a fall there. And you can see there from the tracking situation that things are actually definitely easing back now, although still a little bit ahead. But again, you have to be careful, because you should be taking the land out really of that story.
That's right. And that's what that graph shows. So if you take out the land, you've got the yellow, the yellow and the red. They're almost on par. They're almost tracking. But the difference is that the demand is a lot higher than in 2024. So, and hence the reason why we're seeing a lot of the markets in Sydney, prices just continuing to rise.
And just looking at Melbourne, 29,731 on the 17th, 30,145 on the 24th. So listings are rising in Melbourne. So going in the other direction, which is perhaps one of the reasons that we've been speaking about, could be part of the reason. And it's a combination there of houses and apartments and townhouses. Land is around 3,000, just over 3,200. And in Brisbane, 3,363 on the 17th, 3,331 on the 24th, so not much change. And look at the auctions. Well, auctions look as though they're probably beginning to slow down a little now. There was an AFR article saying that the clearance rates were down a little bit. And we're certainly starting to see some easing back. And again, I come back to this simple point, Edwin. More people are avoiding the auction path to sell or to buy, which I think is very significant.
It is, man. Very, very significant. The trust is you know no longer there as much as they push. A lot of the mainstream franchises are pushing hard on auction campaigns, as they say, to help people make decisions on the day. Well, obviously it's the commission that keeps the doors open. But just going back one step, Martin, before I just noticed it just then as you were reading out the numbers from Melbourne. Look at the house, the freestanding house numbers from Monday the 17th, right? We were at 18,054, and overall 29,731. The house listing numbers have risen by 400 freestanding homes got put on from last week to this week. There's 400 more, and we've clocked the 30,000, which was one of my predictions earlier on that we said we're going to clock the 30,000. And then if you look at the freestanding house listing numbers in Melbourne, you've got close to 19,000, and the overall listing numbers for the Sydney region, 23,000. I mean, there's just as many homes for sale in Melbourne than the overall numbers for including land lots in Sydney. These are crazy numbers. I still don't understand why the mainstream aren't catching up to what we've been saying for a while. How there's these two markets are just the way that they're playing out, and the actual type of properties that are on the markets and how they differentiate.
Absolutely. Well, the Melbourne story is very different from what some people have been talking. Actually, Louis Christopher was quoted over the weekend suggesting that people probably wouldn't necessarily buying into Melbourne simply because of all those land taxes and everything else. And he suggested there was a bit of a trap for people thinking that this was actually a good market to buy into. And certainly this data would suggest that that's playing out. And on the auction comparisons, it's worth highlighting the fact that 24 to 25, the numbers are still below where they were in 2024. So that's just worth just thinking about in terms of the trajectory. And on the rentals, in Sydney, 11,464 on the 17th, 11,957 the week later, so just a slight rise. In Melbourne, 12,221 on the 17th, 12,276. So a little rise in both areas. But as we keep saying, Edwin, the true story here is those renters who are locked into a property that they're currently in and are just happy, quote unquote, willing, not necessarily able, but willing to try and actually respond to price increases by simply saying, well, I've got no choice. I've just got to accept the higher payment. So the rental stress is still very high. Nothing I'm seeing in anything at the moment, any intervention from government is having an impact on that. And of course, the truth is that I do expect the government to come in with some more power support in terms of bill rebates over the next few months to try and actually solve the cost of living crisis. But the rental crisis is, well, it's hugely dramatic.
Yeah. I was going to say, Martin, the couple of things. Couple of points there. One is people say to me, well, if the market was so stressed in terms of the rental, with the rentals, why is there still 12,000 or so properties for rent available in the Sydney region? I mean, these people have got no clue. 12,000 pre-2020 was what you had available in the Parramatta LGA and the Blacktown LGA put together combined. That was 12,000. And the other reason why we're not actually seeing the greater extent of the rental pressures is a lot of people not realizing that there's a lot of dual families and people are sharing even the rental accommodation. There's 2 and 3 tenants to a property. You just have to talk to the property managers.
Yep.
It's not only just one family, it's two families, it's not just one couple, it's two couples or three couples that are on the application. In some parts of Sydney, property managers prefer to have two tenants in two different families or two different couples or three as to having one. Why? Because there's less chance of them to move. The landlord is secured with the higher rents that are asked for those dwellings. And there's less chance of any defaults because none of them want to default on the rental payment. And the reason why they're banded together is so they can afford, because they obviously want to be in that area for work, for recreation, for schooling, for religious purposes, whatever the case may be. So this is the interesting dynamic that's playing out. And obviously, when I brought this out to this individual, I said, "Oh shit, is that why?" Yeah, it's because they just see with the blinkers on, they just see what's put in front of them, what the mainstream are saying. Like as I said, they don't realise that before 2020, those numbers, across just the Parramatta LGA and the Blacktown LGA, you had anywhere from 8,000 to 2,000 properties available for rent.
Yes, well, this multi-occupation story is one that, again, the media is not actually picking up substantially, I think. And when you chop a house into multiple pieces, either formally or informally, it means that the prospective investor can generate a higher return, which puts more upward pressure on prices. But of course, it also puts more pressure because it means that the prospective renter is living in a smaller space. And if you look at some of those spaces that are being offered now, very simple converted rooms with a sort of a toilet and a bathroom in the corner, it is shameful of what's happening. And again, I don't think that the planning processes nor the regulatory systems are actually catching this, and people are being trapped and caught and have got little way out. And talking about being trapped and caught, we should just briefly, before we end, as we figured we would, talk about the showroom bathroom renovations. You spoke about this some time ago, Edwin, and unfortunately, it's coming home to roost, just as you said it would.
Yeah, they're coming. This is the aftermath, or this is the, or you could say they're making a comeback. So the story goes, this particular individual, and I'll send you the video so you can post it after we have the quick chat. And that is this is a story where this individual said to me that this property buyer that bought 2 years ago, they bought because they fell in love with the renovated bathrooms. So you've got 3 bathrooms in the house. It's a big 5-bedroom house. And they fell in love with the house. And in my opinion, at that time, they paid 200 to 250,000 over the odds anyway, because of the emotion. That's the emotional tag or price tag to the value of the home. And so he's a friend of one of our good clients. That we've assisted himself and his family, and he said, "Look, can you help my friend out? He's having some issues with his bathrooms that were that were renovated 2 years ago before the purchase, and this is it. This is what happened. This is your two." So whilst I was there, the reason why I was pulling these, I pulled the medicine cabinet or the shaving cabinet off the wall. I assisted in that, and whilst I was there, looking at the bathroom to see how we can help him, or to find out what was actually what the issue was, apart from water coming out onto the corridor. This is it. I had to stay back, take the cabinet off the hooks, because if I hadn't removed the cabinet, there was so much weight. The cabinet was bigger than a 900 millimeter cabinet. It was closer to a meter. 3 doors, heavy glass doors. That cabinet just had the potential to fall on any one of his kids, and potentially maim them, kill them, whatever, injure them badly. And now I'm going to help them out with one of our renovation teams to fix the recently renovated bathrooms.
Yeah, it is horrendous. And unfortunately, we've been talking about this for some time, but people are still not doing the due diligence. And of course, it looks superficially shiny and nice. But as you saw there, the way the tiles were affixed to the wall was very suspect. The whole structure was actually suspect. And as you say, massive heavy weight on the wall on a very small hook, asking for trouble. And unfortunately, so often people just seem to be bounced into buying the wrong thing. So this, as you put in the post there, up now for 3 bathroom renovations. They paid over the odds, believed the agent's story of the owner being a reputable builder, trusted the building report he got. Well, you can fall into a freshly renovated bathroom ×3, but you've got to ask the deeper question. And Edwin, this is a really important case study and a wake-up call, I think, for many. So very important that you've brought it for us today.
Yeah, and look, in costs, as I said, they paid an emotional cost at the beginning, $200,000 to $250,000 when they bought the property above the odds, above value at the time, and now, without on the surface, we're looking at potentially $80,000 or $90,000 based on if the timber frame is is, you just don't know how long this has been happening. It's obviously been happening before the showroom renovation as well, because the timbers were rotted, in the door jamb and around it, and further down the corridor from where the bathrooms were located. So this is the pain that people go through. And just in closing, Martin, it's because people don't have the time. They don't have the time. They're trusting the wrong professional that's not on their side. They don't have the time to do the due diligence. And when they do get their own professional to do the due diligence, or the building and pest inspection, or as you say, the survey, most of the people out there, it's an unregulated industry, and most don't know how to check these things. They don't have a building background. They don't have a trades background. They're ex-IT people that got sacked when Google retrenched people. That.
Absolutely. So the point is that you may have the money, but it doesn't mean that because you've got the money, you've got the experience. And you may think that buying a property is a simple process, but as we try to highlight here, it's a trap. It's a bear trap. And if you do the wrong decisions and don't rely on the right professionals, you can end up paying a lot more for property that's going to be a real problem. And it's not just a point in time problem. It goes on and on and on. And if indeed you do have to strip back the bathrooms and replace the timbers in the walls, that's a huge disruption, a huge expense, and is highly inconvenient, but very importantly is a bad outcome from a financial perspective too. So we can only say it so much, Edwin, but we keep saying it. Do your due diligence on the way in. That is the time to do your checks and balances. Don't get bounced into making quick decisions. Don't assume that the agent is telling you the full story. Don't rely on those very simplistic building reports that are part of the marketing document. They are not worth the paper they're written on quite often. It's really, really important to do your due diligence on the way in. Can we say more than that, Edwin?
100%.
No.
No, 100%. That, I think we've said it all, and look forward to doing more one-to-ones with the Brits and the expats that want to come back home, Martin. So we'll certainly push them your way as we meet up, hook up with the Century 21 offices or head office there in. I think we've got the Google Hangout or something. The meeting on in a couple of days' time, where we're going to be discussing all this, because it's going to be a major launch for the beginning of 2026. They've got the big conference in January, at the end of January 2026, and that's when it's going to be pushed out. So yeah, so look, you put it this way, Martin. You're going to be not only talking to us Aussies, you're going to actually be talking to your own people now.
Yeah, well, I'm quite busy actually. Quite a few people need the help. I'm always glad to help as well. Edwin, as always, thank you very much. Great conversation tonight. Very important points that we've covered as always. We'll do it all again next week. There'll be more to talk about. See you then.
Take care, Martin.
Bye-bye.